LBC News.
A panel made up of social housing tenants who will advise the government is meeting later. It follows the death of a 2-year-old from a respiratory condition linked to prolonged exposure to mould. The group's been set up to liaise with the Housing Secretary, Michael Gove, who's promised there will be a crackdown on unsafe homes. Well, Suzanne Minna is the Secretary of the Social Housing Action Campaign and joins us now. What are your hopes from these discussions?
Well, thanks, Sandy. I don't think the social housing tenants and residents have really got much hope in this panel. I don't think they would put a lot of hope and expectation on it, really, that it will make any kind of fundamental change to the direction of travel that government has taken in relation to social housing over the last couple of decades, or governments, rather. You know, governments of any colour really have taken in relation to social housing. I think it's worth noting this panel was actually set up. The initiative was underway before the coroner's ruling on little Awaab Ishak's death. And the major problem with it is that the people on the panel are going to be handpicked by government through an application process. They're not actually selected by tenants and residents themselves. And obviously that's no disrespect to anyone serving on this panel, but they aren't actually representatives. They're not there as representatives who are then democratically accountable to their constituents, if you like. So it's really no more than a focus group or a sounding board for government. And every single housing association that I know of has got one of these panels. You know, they're already in place across the social housing network, and yet we've seen this huge, spread of these scandals over the last few years. You know, anything from Grenfell to Awaab Ishak, obviously, are the real extreme examples. But there have been plenty of others. The Eastfield estate, there was a Clarion estate that we saw, and lots of others too. You know, some of the L&Q properties that were exposed by ITV.
So what would make a difference then? If you're saying these are the sort of talking shops, for want of a better description, that have been going on for a while, but what would make a difference?
Well, I think what has to be addressed is this extreme power imbalance that we've got between tenants and residents on the one hand, if you like, and the landlords on the other. And increasingly, the interface is digital. There are barriers, a series of barriers in the way of tenants and residents being able to hold their landlords to account. What we need is a system of democratically elected tenants and residents who are actually given the power to hold their landlords to account. So I think if Gove was serious, that's what he would have invested in, made a major investment in supporting the creation of tenant and resident, tenant unions, tenant and residents association and tenants unions, and actually change legislation so that they actually have the power to hold their landlords to account. You'd need to make,
Suzanne Minna, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Secretary of the Social Housing Action Campaign.